Hello, everyone. Thank you for signing on to today's Amtrak Vacations presentation. I'm so excited to have you folks here with me on the presentation today. Now, just a quick little bit of housekeeping before we dive into the presentation at large. I do want to let you folks know that you are all muted during the presentation. But of course, you can always contribute your questions or any comments you may have into the questions box that you will find as indicated on the side of the GoToWebinar platform. I will take time at the end of the presentation to go over a session for Q&A. Now, of course, during the presentation, some of your questions may already be answered as we go along. And I do want to let you know that in terms of any questions regarding a customer service specific situation or pricing, we would indicate for you to give us a call at 1-800-268-7252 and chat with one of our very friendly Amtrak Vacations consultants. So let's dive in. I want to formally introduce myself. My name is Jared Kettinger. Now, folks, I recognize by my photo there on the screen, I do look a little youthful. I've actually been with Amtrak Vacations and our corresponding brands for nearly a decade now. And so again, I welcome you folks to type any questions, any comments, even respond to me, as I do like to make this interactive. And again, that can all be funneled and put into the questions box on the side of the GoToWebinar panel as we talk about many subjects today. The main subject of the presentation is top East Coast destinations that you folks can visit by train. So overall, what will we cover today? Well, of course, we'll cover that East Coast destination train trip topic. We will also cover what it's like to travel overnight and what the cabins are like overnight on board the train. Some additional important things for you folks to know when preparing or thinking about traveling on board Amtrak or on board the train. Popular destinations, destinations that folks are booking literally as we speak, inquiring and booking right now, popular destinations to travel to that you can even travel to this year in 2021 or start getting yourself ready to travel to next year, or so on and so forth. We'll go over a description of how, in essence, to route your vacation from your most local hometown or closest train station to you. And of course, as I covered, we will go into a live Q&A at the end of the presentation. So folks, there are two important brands that you should know about as we start getting deeper into the presentation for you to know about our company at large. The host brand of the presentation today is Amtrak Vacations, of course. That's what you signed up to learn about. And that is our flagship brand. Now, to know going into this what Amtrak Vacations essentially is, of course, we are a vacation travel company. That's pretty straightforward, where we bundle the vacation travel packages, including the hotels for your stay, the sightseeing and attractions and excursions during the vacation, and of course, the exciting, relaxing, enjoyable train trip, all conveniently wrapped together and sewn together with a nice bow for a one-stop shop vacation package to you. And of course, as the name is Amtrak Vacations, that is travel within the contiguous United States. Rail Bookers, which is our worldwide or international rail vacations or holidays, is the same concept. Again, bundling the hotels, sightseeing, attractions, and excursions with the rail travel experience. But whereas Amtrak Vacations is within the contiguous United States, this is for travel in Europe, Canada, Australia, and even Alaska. So if you folks are excited to potentially travel through essentially the wilderness of Alaska into Denali, or going down to the waterfronts, going from one area to another, we can cover that through rail bookers. Let's continue. Now, it is important to note that across our brands, we can help you book vacation travels to connect travels packages from today, or last minute travel, which I can tell you we've gotten a lot of demand for last minute travel, to as far out as 2023. So whether you are looking to travel last minute, or maybe not last minute, but still within the year of 2021, maybe you're planning your vacations out for next year, or you are inquiring but maybe not ready to travel or travel on this particular type of trip until 2023. We have availability to start quoting, planning, and booking you onto those dates. And I do like to say that all of our rail vacations are customizable. Now, before I go into that, I do always like to ask a question, and folks, feel free to respond, to type the answer into the questions box on the side of the GoToWebinar panel. As we got deeper into this, who here was aware, yes or no, prior to this webinar, that Amtrak Vacations does the vacations packages with the hotels, with the sightseeing, and with the train trip? Was anybody aware of that prior to the presentation? Yes or no, right into the questions box. Okay. Looking at this poll right now, it looks like we're about 75% yeses to about 25% no's. So the majority of you folks were aware that we could do this all as packages. However, there are some, of course, that did not know this, and that's why we do webinars like this, so that you folks who did not know, now you know. We're a one-stop shop. For those who were aware, welcome back to our presentation. Welcome back to the brand. And we can start talking in a few minutes about some exciting East Coast destinations. Now, all of our rail vacations are customizable. And usually when I get to this slide, I go over a little bit of a hypothetical situation. Perhaps you were looking on our website or through one of our e-brochures that we might have sent you, and you were very interested in a trip that went up the coast of California and did a trip to San Diego and Los Angeles and Santa Barbara all in one trip. And so you picked up the phone all excited, whether it's you, Tina, or you, Emmanuel, you, Joyce, you, Amy, you, Richard, you, Mary, you, Marie, you, Melinda, whoever it may be. And you got on the phone with Amtrak Vacations and you said, we want to do the West Coast in this case, California trip, the San Diego, Los Angeles, and Santa Barbara. Remember, folks, this is just a hypothetical. But you really like that package, but you want to add on a destination. For example, you're talking with an Amtrak Vacations consultant and you want to add on San Francisco. You just let the Amtrak Vacations consultant know, and we customize the trip to add on the destination. Or you want to add an extra night in each of the destinations. Maybe there's 2 nights in each of the destinations, whether this is for the West Coast package or an East Coast package. But instead of 2 nights in each destination or each city, you want to add a 3rd night. We can do that. Or you want to route the trip so that it starts and ends in a local hometown station, wherever that is closest to you. So you want to pick up the train and go and return by train to the closest station that's convenient for you. Maybe that's not already included in the package. We can rework it so it is. And for the traveling overnight on board the train, you want to make sure that sleeping accommodations are included. So you want to upgrade the ticket. And then last but not least, you've added on San Francisco to the West Coast trip. You've added on an extra night to the package. in each of the cities. You started and end the trip, round trip from a local hometown. You made sure that when you go round trip, you have upgraded your rail ticket. And then in each of those destinations where we've already included sightseeing, perhaps you want to include a harbor cruise by way of San Diego and a trip to Yosemite by way of San Francisco, so that you're adding on additional excursions and sightseeing tours, making your trip customized to your specifications. So let me ask you folks, does that make sense to you when I say, or we mention, that we can customize our itineraries? Does that make sense? Perfect. Bunch of yeses just came in. By the way, that was just a hypothetical. We're going to go into some of the East Coast destinations in a moment. That was just a specific hypothetical. And by the way, I had a really great comment. We did this for our upcoming glacier trip. Thank you, Marie. I like to hear that chime in. So why do travelers love Amtrak vacations? Number one, when you're working over the phone with an Amtrak vacations consultant, and you can find the phone number at the bottom of the screen, you are working with someone who knows the rail systems. They know the best routes and best times. For example, there are some trains that depart multiple times a day, sometimes 2 times a day, sometimes 3 times a day, sometimes 5, sometimes 10, sometimes more. Sometimes the trains might run from 3 in the morning until midnight. Or opposite, maybe the trains only run 3 days a week total. When you're working with a rail expert, they can help make sure you're on the best times and the best routing. Perhaps you want to go to a whole plethora of destinations across the United States on one journey. Again, the rail expert can help make sure everything is lined up properly for you in the best routing situation. And whether you are looking to quote now, to book and travel now, or quote now or plan now to book and then travel next year or the year after, we can help you get set up from today to 2023. And as we like to say here, we have a maximum flexibility on a bunch of different levels. But in this situation, we say that you can go to pretty much any destination on any date at any time for any length of travel. Simply put, if the trains are going there and the destination is open, because of course that's key, then we can send you there. We're not like the cruise companies or the escorted tour group travel bus companies where you have to go on their specific departure dates. Again, this is your independent vacation. This is your trip. You can go when you want to. And I did present earlier that we're Amtrak Vacations and Rail Bookers. And so between our Amtrak Vacations brand here domestically for travel in the United States, whether it's to one USA destination, multiple, whether you're going to major or popular iconic US cities, or going to the US national parks, or through our Rail Bookers brand, you may be going throughout Canada, throughout Europe, throughout Alaska, throughout Australia, parts of Asia. We have the largest rail vacation selection worldwide. And as we like to say here, no rail trip is too complicated for us. Now, why book now? I mentioned we have multiple levels of maximum flexibility. In this case, we offer a maximum flexibility to our customers who book new reservations by September 30. And when doing so, you have a certain level of coverage. And we do offer a trip protection coverage here as well on our vacation packages that you can go over with the Amtrak Vacations consultant. But when booking by September 30th, you have an extra level of coverage where if you needed to change or cancel your trip, you would incur any no change or cancellation fees. And our flash sale has been extended. So folks, right now, again, you can get lost in what we like to refer to the right direction, whatever direction it may be, and save up to $350 off per couple based on the length of travel of the package. Of course, for any details, go over with the Amtrak Vacations consultants on that. So where can you travel to by train? And as I like to say, also important, where can you come from by train? Now, folks, everywhere on this map, you're seeing a red line. That is a route that Amtrak travels on. So you can see it's splashed across the contiguous United States. Everywhere there's a red line, that's a route. Now, everywhere you're seeing a little star on this map, that's a destination that Amtrak Vacations has a package that it goes to, where we bundle, as I mentioned before, the hotels at 3, 4, and 5-star levels you're choosing, the sightseeing and excursions, exciting things to do, things to explore in those destinations, and of course the rail to get there, whether that just be a regular coach seat or upgrading to the sleeper cabins, which I'll cover in a few moments. And we have over 500 different Amtrak stations to depart from all throughout the United States. So whether you're coming from a major US station like New York City, like Chicago, like Los Angeles, or you're coming from the closest station to your hometown, and that closest station might be Malta, Montana. It might be Lamy, New Mexico. It might be Atlanta, Georgia. It might be New York City. It might be Erie, Pennsylvania, or Cleveland, Ohio. We can route our packages to start and end, should you wish that, at your closest station to you. So, the topic of the day is the East Coast destinations that you can visit to by train. So let's dive into that. The first of which is the Niagara, New York getaway. And by the way, this is round trip, or as you can see, RT on the slide there, New York City. So this itinerary, when it reads RT or round trip, is indicating that it departs from and returns to going round trip from New York. That being said, as I just went over, you could essentially take out the word New York or NYC and replace it with Cleveland, Ohio, or Lamy, New Mexico, or Malta, or Atlanta, or Boston, where I'm from, or Charleston, South Carolina. So any of these packages can be rerouted to start from your local train station or local hometown. This particular package, trending quite well right now, is for Niagara Falls, New York. And so this package would pick up and return to Penn Station, right in downtown Manhattan. And traditionally, the round trip packages are jumping off points so that it does pick up and it does return to the station in that location, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there's an actual stay in that destination, in this case, New York City. If, say, you wanted to include a night in downtown Manhattan with sightseeing included, that can be added on to be customized on the trip. And this particular package is based out of Niagara Falls, New York. So we do have 2 nights hotel accommodations right along the falls. We do have sightseeing included. Traditionally, it is the famed Maid of the Mist boat ride that goes right up to the water. And as you can assume from the name, the waves and the wafting of the water come right up, splashing some mist on your face. Now, this package is based out of the New York side of Niagara Falls. It's often quite popular for folks to go to the Canadian side. That is, of course, starting to book as things are creeping or creaking open across the border. But for any details deeper on that, of course, you would want to give us a call in. So this package, the first one is the Niagara Falls, New York getaway. Again, round trip from New York City. It includes 2 nights hotel accommodations, the Maid of the Abyss boat ride, and within the package is the round trip coach seating going from New York City to Niagara Falls, New York on the Maple Leaf. As I mentioned before, if you wanted to add a night in New York, either at the beginning or the end of the trip, we could plop that in. If you wanted to extend your stay in New York, Niagara Falls rather, and do, instead of 2 nights, 3 nights, we could always rework the itinerary to do so. Simple as that. Next up, we have the New England fall foliage, which this is the time of year every year that our fall foliage packages start to become quite popular to be sold. And I can tell you right now, we are already exceedingly sold up for these itineraries. The space is limited. And this, of course, is the primary season to come to the New England area. This includes a few nights stay in Boston. During the stay in Boston, which is traditionally 3 nights in total, we include, of course, a full day guided tour out on what is known as the fall foliage routes through central Massachusetts and southern New Hampshire. So that is a full day guided tour from morning until evening that will pick up in Boston, take you out on the foliage tours to essentially do, as it's called, leaf peeping. We also include a guided tour essentially run by the same company. It's a full day guided tour through Lexington and Concord, with also a stop in Cambridge to stop at Harvard. So you get to essentially go along the same route that Paul Revere did his famous ride, and then end up for a time in a walking tour throughout the Harvard area as well. From there, you will take what is known as the Downeaster, which is the train that routes out of Boston's North Station, up along the Atlantic Ocean, and eventually ending in Portland, Maine, where we would include a 2-night stay in Portland with a guided trolley tour to the 5 famous Portland lighthouses. And folks, if you did want to customize this trip, we do have options where we can include a rental car service for you to pick up and drive on up into the Bar Harbor area of Maine and extend the trip up into Acadia National Park. Also, if you wanted to do a smaller version of the package and say just do Boston for maybe a 2 or 3 night stay with the fall foliage ride, or just a Portland trip, or just a Portland and Acadia trip, we can customize the packages to do such things. So that, folks, is the New England fall foliage. And again, that includes day trip through the fall foliage on one of the days in stay in Boston, a day trip through Lexington, Concord, and Cambridge. A hop-on, hop-off sightseeing tour is also included in Boston. That's one of those open trolley tours where you can get on and off the tour all throughout the city at your leisure. And of course, then the beautiful scenic ride up the coast of Portland for a 2-night stay in Portland as well. We also have the Essential American Heritage. What's very nice about this package is the convenience of taking the Northeast Corridor or fast-running Acela trains up on the East Coast of the United States, running from downtown city to downtown city, from Boston to downtown Manhattan to New York, into the city of brotherly love of Philadelphia, and then eventually ending in the nation's capital of Washington, D.C., as you can see right front and center in front of you. In Boston, we will have included the hop-on, hop-off tour. Again, that's a trolley tour that'll take you all throughout the city. If you want to hit up the North End for some famous Italian food, even go into Mike's Pastry to get a cannoli, a fresh handmade cannoli. Or if you want to do a little bit more of the history side, maybe go to the Old North Church, or just kind of bum around Boston, as I'm very familiar with as a Bostonian myself. I hit up the history of Fenway Park and the resounding area. Do as you wish. From there, you'll head into New York City, where we also include a hop-on, hop-off tour, as well as what's known as a New York City City Pass, which is an attraction booklet good for admissions to the 9/11 Museum and Memorial, the Empire State Building Observatory. You can see that right front and center there with the binoculars that'll help you overlook the city. We also include the admission to the Natural History Museum, the Museum of Modern Art. And again, it's an open booklet with attraction admissions for you to choose to come and go as you please. From there, then you'll head down to Philly. Again, allowed with the hop on, hop off to do your own version of excursions all over the city. If you want to get a famous Philly cheesesteak or run up the famous Rocky Steps, you can do as you please. You can also go up to the observatory area, one of the tall observatory towers overlooking the city. And there's also the the Museum of the American Revolution history that you can go to as well. And then from there, ending up in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, where you have plenty of things to do. The Smithsonian's are open now. That is a national treasure, the Smithsonian Institute, with the many museums to choose from. We also include a Monuments by Moonlight tour, which is a guided tour out to several famous monuments, whether it be the Lincoln Memorial, the FDR Memorial, which is right next to the Martin Luther King Memorial, the Vietnam War Memorial, and many more, as the monuments are lit up all in their glory in the evening time. So during the day, you're free to explore at your leisure. At night, one of the nights there, you'll have the Monuments by Moonlight tour, and that is one of my favorite tours that I've ever been on. It is very solemn, very quiet, a great way to get really close to some of the monuments that are quite crowded during the day. So that, folks, is the essential American heritage trip. And again, everywhere on these maps that you see a bubble with a number in it, that indicates the amount of overnights at a destination or at a hotel. Of course, for example, if say you wanted to add an extra night, say in Philadelphia, where there's only one night listed, but you wanted to make sure it's two, just as the other cities are, we can make sure it's reworked to do so. We also have the New Orleans Ultimate Getaway, in this case, round trip from Chicago. Now, I know I'm kind of repeating myself, but again, it is important to drive home that just because this says Chicago or New York or wherever it's starting from, doesn't mean we can't rework these to start from your local station. In fact, that's one of our most commonly asked questions. Can I come from my local hometown? So this is round trip from Chicago, Amtrak's major hub, heading into the city that care forgot, New Orleans. And again, while this is just a jumping off point in Chicago at the Union Station, you can always add a night stay there or a night stay in, as you can see in here, the sky deck admission at the top of the Willis Tower overlooking the city. It's a big glass open box. You can get a great view of the Chicago architecture from, and that is only steps away from Chicago's Union Station. And then from there, you'll head down into New Orleans. So that is an overnight on the famous City of New Orleans route. One of my favorite parts of the route is that before you get into the city, the train itself will cusp through the bayous and then along Lake Pontchartrain, eventually ending right in New Orleans, where our stay is located either adjacent or even in hotels in the French Quarter. And there is plenty to choose from and plenty to do in the city that we include within the package. So this includes 3 nights hotel accommodations. You can see that by the bubble there. It also includes round trip overnight on board the Amtrak train, the city of New Orleans. You can see that round trip overnight indicated by the red arrow on the map. Everywhere there's a red arrow with a number in it, that indicates an overnight on board the train. So that's 1 overnight down from Chicago to New Orleans, 1 overnight back. Then within the 3 nights stay, we include the New Orleans Pass. It's very similar to the New York City Pass that I just covered in the Essential trip, where it gives you your option for inclusions, such as admission to the Mardi Gras World or the National World War II Museum, a Creole cooking demonstration, and about 24 different other tours, museums, and attractions for this attraction pass to you to gain interest and access to. We also give you your choice of inclusions additional to that, which is a Hurricane Katrina walking tour, a Green Line Steamboat Natchez evening jazz cruise, which we can include for with a lunch or a dinner inclusion. And this is round trip from Chicago overnight, so we can always upgrade to have sleeper accommodations on board the train, which I will cover in a moment. So we have multiple people asking, what is it like on board the train? Well, the first level of accommodations is coach accommodations, which are 2 big plush comfy seats. The seats themselves recline at a 45-degree angle with a leg rest that'll kick up, a tray table that will fold down for drinks, snacks, devices, outlets to charge said devices. Right there, you can see right in front of you. Plenty of room above head for luggage, and a nice big picture window to enjoy all the sights out of. I like to refer to the big picture windows on the train as essentially your window on the world, because it is your window on the world. As the train is whizzing up the East Coast or West Coast along the ocean, going through the mountains, going through the plains, connecting from city to city, you will enjoy all the sights right from the window of the train. Now, folks, I will say that right now, you can imagine these folks wearing a facial covering that is required on board the train for anyone in the open areas and traveling throughout the stations. However, there are some other inherent benefits that I will cover in a moment. Important things that you should know, such as if you have a sleeper car, you have priority boarding onto the train ahead of everyone else. So you can board the train, jump on ahead of the general access or admission, or as I like to point out, you can board the train, get into your sleeper car, drop your luggage, kind of scope out the area on the train, how close you are to car A, how close you are to car B, how close you are to the dome car, where the windows go all the way up to the roof of the train car, so that early access is beneficial. Also, when you have your own sleeper car on board the train, you have a dedicated car attendant to that bank of sleeper cars that are traveling with you. And their jobs are many. They provide the included toiletries, complimentary bottled water and coffee. They also will help fold everything down in the evening time to the sleeping accommodations. They also are constantly cleaning everything else, making sure everything is ship-shape and in Bristol fashion. And quite often, they will come knocking on your cabin door and say, hello, sir, hello, ma'am. In just a few moments, you're going to be wanting to look out the window because we're going to be traveling by XYZ beautiful scenery that you will see outside of your window on the world on the train. And I just mentioned that everyone is required to wear a facial covering or a mask when traveling on board the train, whether you're a passenger, whether you're a staff member. When you're traveling throughout the station and on board the train, facial coverings, masks are required. That being said, if you are in your own sleeper car cabin with the privacy door that is shut, you are then, of course, allowed to remove your facial covering or remove your mask. So that is one of the inherent benefits, other than the fact that you can kind of have your own privacy, kind of sequester yourself away from the world within your own private cabin. That, of course, is one of the inherent benefits. And meals are included when you are traveling on board the train with a sleeper car. So meals are factored into the overall cost of the sleeper. And as it was always an available option before things went, let's call it wild, where the meals could be provided to the cabin, that was already an option for many, many years. One of the exciting announcements that as of this past June 23rd, the dining cars on some of the long distance scenic trains, for example, the Empire Builder, the Coast Starlight, the California Zephyr, the Southwest Chief, parts of the Sunset Limited, parts of the Texas Eagle, those traditional dining service cars are back in full force with an updated menu where the meals are cooked to order for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Now, we'll say this, the menus are always chef inspired, and as I just mentioned, they are updated. What is very exciting is that, of course, we have some brand new options and we have some Amtrak signature favorites, such as the Railroad, or for the kids, Choo Choo French Toast, and the famous Amtrak signature steak. Some of the other benefits is that the first adult beverage is included, and we are hearkening back to some of the old style, such as the return of the older versions of the cutlery, the real cloth tablecloths. It is exciting. Now, what do the cabins look like? We covered coach, we covered some of the benefits of the sleeper cabins or sleeper cars. So what do they actually look like? Well, here is the roomettes, which are during the day. You can see two big plush seats within the cabin. The window on the world, the nice big picture window to enjoy all the sights out of. And you can see by the diagram, everything folds down to bunk style sleeping. I just highlighted this a second ago, but I do like to point it out multiple times. When you have your own sleeper car, particularly the roomette, of course, the door will shut during the day and during the night for privacy. And at night, everything will fold down to the sleeping accommodations. It is bunk style. But one of the benefits is the privacy. It is the sequestering away from the world. Like this young lady here, you can see during the day, she's had the lower bunk folded out. She's stretching out. She's relaxing. She's diving into a thick book while watching the scenery go by. That is one of the inherent benefits of traveling on board the train, kind of just removing yourself from the hustle and bustle of daily life and just enjoying being away from everything. Here, folks, you can see a more blown up or larger version of the cabin diagram with the bunk style sleeping. Now, each roomette cabin fits up to 2 adults or 1 adult, 1 child. And you can see the private restroom access is listed in the car. The private shower access is in the car. So that is not in the cabin itself, but rather down the hall. It should be noted there's about 3 to 4 bathrooms in every roomette train car, and only those in that car have access to use those restrooms and showers. That being said, should you want your own private sleeper with your own private bathroom and shower within the room itself, the next step up is the sleeper bedroom. That is the bigger of the cabins on board the train, with a long couch, a big captain's chair, as we refer to it, the window on the world, the nice big picture window to enjoy all the sights out of. Everything still does fold down to bunk style sleeping, and it does, of course, have its own bathroom and shower within the room itself. Here is how everything looks at night as it's folded down in the bedroom. You can see there's plenty of room to kind of stretch around. There on the left is the door to the restroom and shower right there, so you can see what it's like. And again, this fits up to 2 adults or 1 adult, 1 child. We can, in some cases, some specific cases, fit 2 adults and a small child. It should be noted that the child will have to share the lower bunk with another person, of course, one of the other 2 or 3 in the cabin, and that child cannot weigh more than 40 pounds. As you can see listed, it's an in-the-room restroom and in-the-room shower to access for only those staying in that cabin. And if there are any on the presentation that need to travel with a walker wheelchair, of course we can accommodate you. There are ADA accessible access rooms on the lower level of the trains that can fit a walker wheelchair traveler. There's also a restroom, a sink, and a toilet within the cabin itself. And meals, of course, can be provided right to that cabin, as I just mentioned a few moments ago. So, for folks, if you are now excited, if you are now thinking of traveling, how should you pack or think about packing for the train? Well, you're allowed 2 free carry-ons per person and 2 check bags per person. Luggage itself can be checked as close into travel as 45 minutes to around an hour ahead of time. In fact, around an hour ahead of time is when we traditionally suggest getting to the train station. It's not like the airports and the airlines where you have to get there an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours if you happen to be going international again. You can get to the station around an hour or as close in to check the luggage as 45 minutes ahead of departure and still easily depart upon that train. And there are some inherent discounts that you folks should know about. Children aged 2 to 12 receive a 50% discount off of the rail ticket fare. Seniors 65 and over receive a 10% discount off the rail ticket fare. And then any active military personnel, and then the spouses and dependents of those active military personnel, and then any veterans will receive a 10% discount off the base rail ticket fare. So, some upcoming webinars. The next one on the 24th will be our West Coast vacations. So in this case, I covered many popular East Coast trips. Well, on the 24th, we'll be covering the West Coast. And on the 31st, we'll cover benefits of private sleeper accommodations. So we'll go a little bit deeper into that on the 31st of the month. So, what destinations are you considering for your next vacation? We're very interested. On this webinar, we cover New York City, Niagara Falls, New York, Boston, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C. We highlighted Chicago. We highlighted New Orleans. But there could also be other destinations that we did not mention that you are interested in. Now, as you are free to type the answer to that into the questions box, and we're starting to see DC pop up, actually quite a lot of DC. So someone just mentioned Tampa to catch a cruise. Very good. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to start answering some questions. Now I will mention Again, I'm not going to answer any customer service specific questions, and I will not go over pricing for a package or during the Q&A, because that is something you should discuss with an Amtrak Vacations consultant. Now, there are several hundred questions. I will try and answer as many of them both at once and one at a time as possible. So, is there rental car companies located at certain stations? Now, the person that asked the question put a specific station, but there are over 500 stations. So the answer is yes and no. At certain stations, I won't pretend to know the car rental options at 500 different Amtrak stations. At some stations, yes, there are car rentals. Typically, the bigger stations, the hub stations, like a New York, like a Chicago, like a Los Angeles, will have car rentals either at the station or in close proximity. But again, with over 500 different stations, it would be difficult to pinpoint everything available at every one. Feel free to give us a call. We got a question. Toiletries, are they provided on board the train? Yes, I covered that a few moments ago, but and so this question was asked before that, but yes, soaps, shampoos, towels, of course, the linens for the cabins, the bedding there, they are provided. Let's see, lots of interaction, by the way, folks. And again, it was about a 75% didn't know to about 25% didn't know that we include the hotels and sightseeing within the package. So a very common question we get is, when we're staying at the hotels in the package, and of course that's going to require going from the Amtrak train station to the hotel. Quite often you'll have to go back again to catch that train. Is transportation and luggage assistance provided? So the answer is no and yes. To get between the train stations and the hotels, you will have to go get there on your own by way of a cab or an Uber or a Lyft. Quite often, those transportation services are hanging out outside of those stations, ready to get you from point A to point B. Now, on a very, 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 very rare occasion, sometimes the hotels are located a short distance away, and you may even be able to walk from one area to another, from the train station to another. One example would be in Washington, D.C., where one of our major hotels is literally across the street from the train station. Quite often, though, you will have to catch some form of transportation from point A to point B. The good news is that the hotels and the train stations are typically all in the downtown areas and a short distance away from one another. As for luggage assistance, we get quite a lot of questions with that. You are responsible to transport your luggage from the station to the hotel and vice versa. In the major stations, we can add on complimentary luggage assistance, where some of the younger Amtrak staff employees will help move your luggage, get it onto the train, get it off of the train, get it throughout the station. That can be added, but there are a lot of stations that are not staffed stations where you will have to do that at your own. So it's a yes and a no, and again, something to dive deeper with our Amtrak Vacations consultants. Someone was asking, can we combine the USA and Canada? The answer is yes and no. The reason no is because, of course, the borders are starting to figure themselves out. And so as they figure themselves out, the answer will be yes. And so typically, yes, you can take the train across the border and connect with the Canadian, side, go into the Canada side of Niagara Falls, or go deeper into Canada with the Canadian train system, the Via Rail, which we can book as well. Right now, of course, there are many stipulations regarding it. It is starting to get bigger, more popular, and more open. Again, give us a call. Can I take a train from Chicago to New York to Niagara Falls to Canada? Again, as the borders open themselves up and figure themselves out, yes, for the Canada part. But to answer that question, can I take the train from Chicago to New York to Niagara Falls to Canada? The answer is yes. Where can I find trips from XYZ station? Again, this person put what station was closest to them, but what's closest to them might not be closest to you. Give us a call, give us what station you're coming from. We will give you how it all lines up. When is the fall foliage tour dates? Well, again, our packages predominantly travel out daily. So to get an exact date on when you're looking to travel, give us a call. Let's see. Bear with me a second. I understand that there are 2 train stations in Boston. Is there problems or difficulties getting from one station to another? Believe it or not, there's actually 3 stations in Boston. There's Boston South Station, Boston North Station, and Boston Back Bay Station. Now, I will say this, as a former Bostonian, I don't live in Massachusetts anymore, but I lived for the first 31 years of my life. I will say you are able to get from one station to another, and I will say that it's not very hard to do so. Though I will say a cab or an Uber or a Lyft is definitely required. It is not easy to walk from one to another. Now, as for if it's actually easy to go there, that is really depending on traffic that day. So what I will say is that, yes, you can go from one station to another in Boston. Just prepare the right amount of time for a cushion to get between those places. Are there stations in Rhode Island? The answer is yes. So we got kind of a double-leveled question. Ironic for what the question's asking. What are these? What is it like for the sleeping on board the roomettes? It is bunk style sleeping. If a bunk is folded down at night, typically what is necessary is a lower bunk also needs to be folded down. You can't really sit very well in a cabin, say overnight, if the top bunk is folded down but the bottom bunk is not folded down. So that if there's some sort of specific request, maybe a health issue, maybe a requirement, maybe a difficulty with sleeping, again, I would advise with us first. Maybe we can come up with a better specific situation. But again, these specific situations should, of course, go through an Amtrak vacations consultant. Lots of people putting on where they want to go. Tampa to catch a cruise. They want to go to Sedona. Can I go from Montreal to New York? Again, that's a question about the borders, but yes, typically there are trains directly point A to point B from Montreal to New York City to Montreal. How are reward points applied to train travel? Right now, you cannot, unfortunately, use reward points for an Amtrak vacations trip. That being said, if you are a rewards member in which you have a number that can go on your reservation, you provide that to us, and we can get that put right on your ticket, and you will earn points as you travel with us. More people responding where they might want to go. Glacier National Park, which is our top selling destination, coming to visit me in Charleston, which is where my new home is. Interested in going to Maine, more Maine, lots of Maine. St. Augustine, New Orleans, I'm glad we covered that. Charleston again. Texas, trips to Alaska, which we can do. So far across our brands, we can pretty much do everything that you folks have mentioned. Are roomettes available on all trains? So the answer to that is no. There are trains that are just regional or shorter distance trains. For example, the Northeast regional trains that run from Boston to New York to Philly to Washington, D.C., which is pretty much as south as they go. They can go a little bit in different distances from there. There's some other regional trains like the Palmetto in South Carolina, North Carolina, some of the trains in, say, the Midwest. Those are just day trains, they're regional trains. So there is not sleeper cars on every single train, but they are on the long distance routes. Someone mentioned they want to go to Maine and Quebec City. West Coast and national parks, lots of places people want to go. There are no washers and dryers on board the train. I'm sorry. Are there trips to Myrtle Beach? We unfortunately do not have Myrtle Beach. Can you request extra pillows? You can request extra linens, extra pillows, whether they are available. That, of course, is, if they are available, often they are. But, of course, you're going to want to ask that when you get on the train. How much for costs and how much for deposits cost? That, of course, I will advise that you go through our Amtrak Vacations consultants, because the deposits are based on the overall pricing. How often are the trains cleaned, sanitized, what have you? They are cleaned daily, multiple times daily over the course of the day. That's why I mentioned that's one of the main jobs of the Amtrak attendants. Traveling with friends, if we all have sleepers, is there a way to all hang out? So the answer should, in a way, be yes, because if you are traveling with friends, maybe you have roomettes or bedrooms grouped together, or you can claim seats together in coach areas on board the train. You can also meet up in the dining car, in the cafe car, in the observation car. So the answer is yes. Again, specific reservation requests, give us a call. How close a station is to XYZ area of the country. That's all something you're going to want to chat with an Amtrak Vacations consultant. Protocol on tipping. When you are having meals in your sleeper, whether it's in your sleeper compartment rather, or in the dining car, we suggest you tip just as you would tip at a restaurant. How much you tip at a restaurant, that is totally up to you. I don't go to restaurants with you, so I can't advise on that. But I would just say whatever you typically, out of the kindness of your heart, tip at a restaurant, that's what you would do. Now, as for, say, if you have luggage assistants, the young folks moving the luggage throughout the stations for you, or the car attendants, the Amtrak overnight train car attendants, the sleeper cabin attendants, we would suggest tipping them. Again, we're not going to tell you how much. That is out of the kindness of your heart, but we do suggest it. Now, are the observation cars open, and are they available for all passengers or just the sleeper car passengers? So the observation cars, the dome cars, where the windows go up to the roof of the train, are open. They are available to everyone. They are not restrictive for those that are in the sleeper car against those that are in the coach. They are open to all. Wi-Fi on board. Wi-Fi is on board a lot of the trains. They are not on all of them. Amtrak is doing their best to get them added on as time goes on, and so more and more trains are getting them. But there are many trains with the Amtrak's services. They are on many of them, but not all of them. Okay, folks, I want to say thank you for signing on to the presentation today. There is one more presentation, essentially the same one at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today. So if you would like to sign back on, we welcome you to do so. If you didn't have your questions asked, again, there were several hundred questions, several hundred people signed on today. Feel free to give us a call or sign on to that later presentation, or call your local travel advisor. Have a good rest of your day, folks.